Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about something today that is very important, very impactful. A lot of times it's not talked about, and this is why the challenge continues. And I'm talking about sex abuse, especially as children, and how you deal with that later in life, how you navigate that with somebody who has gone through it and now is an adult. And she works with many people in her practice that have dealt with that. And she's back. She's fantastic as a hypnotherapist, coach. She's also an energy healer of sorts. Raquel Williams is back here. Welcome back. How you doing today?
Hi, Steve. Very good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. And I'm glad we're doing this topic today. It's, people are uncomfortable about it sometimes, but it's so prevalent and happens more than many of us realize, right?
It really does. And because it's not talked about, I think the impact on people that have experienced this in their life, it makes it harder. It makes it harder, especially when you don't understand yourself. There are a lot of people that have gone through this experience as children. And sometimes it doesn't even come out until way later in life. Sometimes the mind doesn't even let you see what happened. There's so many different scenarios, but I really wanted to talk today about the impact it has on you as an adult that had this experience as a child, and you think that, no, I'm over it. I let it go. I haven't thought about that in years, but I'm here to tell you, your body knows, and your psyche knows, and your subconscious mind knows, and it is in fact impacting every part of your life.
I would have to, not being professional here, but I would have to think that it has, if you've gone through it as a child, it's impacting your life in a major way. I'd have to say everybody that's dealt with it, you're dealing with it. You just don't know you're dealing with it as an adult.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the biggest thing, and you're not just speaking to someone who helps people with it, but I'm the adult woman that had this experience as a child. So I'm also speaking from personal experience. And I'm just going to put that out there because I think it's one thing to understand this on a textbook level, but it's another thing with any arena in life when you've experienced something and to really understand the impact it had on you. So I know for a fact, Steve, that when this isn't dealt with, and it's not dealt with in your mind, it's not dealt with in your body where you're able to help release the emotions that surrounded that event, it impacts your self-esteem. Huge impact on self-esteem. It shuts people down. It will, you become very disconnected from yourself, from people, impacts your relationships with your own family. How you see yourself, the certain things that you will even attempt to do or not to do, just because if the mind says that's not safe, you're not going to go there, and you don't really understand why you feel that about whatever, you're feeling anxious about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You don't know why you're feeling it, but it can be traced back to this major trauma. How does the healing process begin?
I've had a lot of people in my own journey, with my own healing journey, before I really understood this, tell me that you do not have to remember an event. You don't have to go back there. You don't have to revisit it. You can just heal from it. And I remember seeing this very specific woman who has a technology. It's a brilliant technology, and I love the work that she does. But even her machine picked up that there was this type of trauma in my life when I was a child. And but I didn't know about it because this is something my mind was protecting me from, right? So when she said it, I was like, what is she talking about? I don't know what she's talking about. I had known of another experience as an older child, but I did not know what she was telling me as this 4-year-old little girl. And so I'm thinking, what in the world is she like? I never understood that. And she would say, when you don't have to know what it is, we're just going to help your body release it. And she wasn't the only one that had said that to me. There were other people in my path that, no, you don't need to know, your body's showing something, but we can just release it. I'm here to tell you that was not my experience. And what I have learned is that to really get to the root of something and really pull that experience, not just from your mind, but energetically, help your body release what it's caused, whether it's shock, betrayal, right? There's different emotions that will get trapped. And I had to know. And I know that sounds scary for some people. I don't want to know. I don't want to relive it. I don't want to. And I am going to say that your mind will be gentle. It'll only give you what you can handle. But you really do, in my experience, need to know what you're connecting that release to. Otherwise, you're not really releasing it to the full extent. And that has definitely been my experience. I had to know.
I see the apprehension of somebody going back to it, dealing with it through whatever it may be, hypnotherapy, whatever modality. I get it, but you look at it this way. Let's say you have surgery needed, right? You're going to go do the surgery. There's going to be recovery. There might be rehab from that. It's not going to be a fun walk in the park, but once you get through it, you're going to be okay. I kind of view this in the same way.
Yes.
And no, I haven't been through it. However, I've been through some other stuff, and you walked me through that through hypnotherapy. Yeah, it was kind of emotional. It's going to be, but you need to do that to heal, like the surgery analogy, to get to the other side, right?
I really believe that. I really do. And that's a great analogy. Because there was really two sides for me, which is why now I combine the hypnotherapy and the energy work, because the impact energetically of these experiences on different organs in the body. When I went through that complete crash where for 12 years I was just out of commission, understanding that I had so many trapped emotions that were in the tissues and the bones and the organs and the cells. I mean, it is amazing how this really works. And until I was able to release those emotions from my body energetically, that's when the full healing really started to come around. So understanding what happened in my mind and telling my mind a new story was like 50% of it, right? And it really helped, and it improved things a lot, because a 4-year-old child doesn't know how to process that type of event. So the belief systems that are created from it are the belief systems of a 4-year-old child trying to understand it or process it. So when you become an adult, if as an adult you had that same experience, it's going to be hurtful. And don't get me wrong, you're going to have stuff to, that you need to work through, but it's not the same, because as an adult, you're going to look at it and you're going to process it so much differently than a child. With that child, there's so much, there's abandonment, there's I'm not loved, I'm not worth loving, I'm not worth protecting. There's all these things that a child will take from an experience like that. And then these belief systems are created, and then all those emotions riddled all over your body. So it's getting in there, and it's helping the mind understand really what happened, and telling the mind the truth that you're not that child anymore, because you can get stuck in a time. Does that make sense, Steve? Like you can get stuck that 4-year-old child. So then you're being triggered. You're being, intimacy issues are an issue between you and someone you love, you adore, and you have no idea why you're so shut down with your husband or your partner or whatever. You just feel a certain way you don't understand, because that little girl's being triggered. She's being triggered every single time, and you don't know. So when a child goes through this, it's so much different, because what is the story that child made about why this happened? That's where it is. And then the emotions of the actual event just getting stuck in the body, causing all kinds of imbalances, all kinds of issues hormonally. Your immune system suffers. There's so much to it.
For life.
Yeah.
Literally for life. And I know quite a few people that were in relationships, and I say the word were because this trauma and the after effects of it ended the relationship.
Yes.
And it might not have been just intimacy issues. There's other things, anger that
Yes.
comes out,
Yep.
all of that. And there's different degrees. There could be verbal abuse connected with the sexual abuse. There's
Yes.
lots of different things.
There's so many different areas. Honestly, we can dig into one and be there all day. Like there's so much to unpack here that it's not just one thing.
Yep.
But yes, it's any type of abuse is abuse. Okay. So even if it was more of an emotional abuse, it's still abuse, right? But when you're dealing with the actual sexual abuse of a child, there's a physical impact, right? So there's a physical trauma that takes place, and that energy gets trapped in the body, right? And then the emotions around it get trapped in the body. And it's typically what I see, it's not in one place. So you can have the same emotion, let's say shock. You can have this emotion of shock that's like in your heart, in your back, in your liver, in this knee, in this, like, it's like you'll find it everywhere. And we have to work on just releasing. So it's layers. And then it's like the body starts to breathe again. If you're like, your nervous system relaxes, right? You start to sleep better. I mean, so many things, Steve. It's like really hard to pinpoint one, but it really does affect all your life.
I'm aware of a situation, couple, and the wife went through abuse. Much of what we're talking about, also verbal, her father was abusive to her mother and all of that. And she would often pick a fight with her spouse. And I'm not the expert here at all, but it was more of a go back to your comfortable spot. Your subconscious wants to bring you back to what you feel most comfortable with. So what do you feel most comfortable with? What you grew up with, all of that. So it was always like start a fight because I feel comfortable. Meanwhile, the other half of the relationship, that's not them. So always battling, it'd be one thing if they both like to battle and it works and whatever, but that wasn't the situation. And that ended.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is when you see people come from a very abusive background or home or whatever, right? And then they end up getting into a relationship with a person who is just as abusive. Might be different. It might be this person that has an addiction or physical abuse, and they only came from emotional abuse. It doesn't matter. Energetically, you attract the same situation in your life. But here's what's happening mentally, right? Doesn't matter how dysfunctional your childhood was, because if that's all you know, then somewhere in your mind, you relate that to love. Like that's the way it's supposed to be. This is what a home is. This is what love is. This is what a relationship is. So you keep getting drawn back into the dysfunction. So in your conscious mind, you're like, no, I don't want this. This is absolutely absurd. Why would I bring this into my life? And this is the part that people have a hard time understanding. You're not consciously going out and choosing this person who's going to abuse you, but subconsciously and energetically, you're continuing to pull these experiences back into your life. So you're matching yourself with someone who's going to continue to make you feel and experience what it is you're used to. So you are absolutely right. This is a cycle. It's a cycle, but people don't have to stay here. And I guess the biggest part of what I'm trying to really want to communicate today is that no matter how much abuse, sexual abuse, whatever it was in your life, you're being impacted. And just open your eyes to what your life is today. Okay, because what life is a mirror, and it'll literally show us who we are in the experiences, in the people, in our finances, in our health. It is a mirror, Steve. So when people really understand that they don't have to live that way, pain is not normal. Okay, addiction's not normal. Sadness, anxiety, depression is not normal. Chronic pain in the body, not normal. Insomnia, not normal. It's not normal. You don't have to live this way. You don't have to allow those experiences of your past to rule your future. It does not have to be that way.
And we get used to normal. We just do. You know,
We do.
it's like the dog who has 3 legs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see,
Exactly.
how's that dog doing? It's hobbling along. Everything's okay. After a while, it doesn't know it has 3 legs.
It doesn't know.
It's kind of doing its thing because that's the
Mhm.
normal. I want to look in a different direction here. Now, we're talking about sex abuse as a child.
Yeah.
What about later in life? Let's say, it might have been in your first relationship, maybe in your, let's say, low 20s, somewhere around there. And now you're, I don't know, 45, 50, whatever. How does that look? Is it, or can it be similar in terms of the trauma and the things that we deal with later in life?
I want to understand the question. So you're saying it happened as a child. We're in a relationship. We're in our 40s now.
No, it's I'm sorry, let me make it clearer.
Okay.
We're talking about as a child.
Oh,
Say
got
it didn't happen then. It happened when you were 22. Let's say you married early and there was that type of abuse or whatever. Maybe you weren't married. Could have been a relationship, whatever it might be. Now
right.
fast forward, you're 45, you're 50. Could you be dealing with the same things later in life that
Mhm.
you would have been dealing with if that abuse took place when you were a child?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It's a trauma, and you're going to notice that from when you were 20 to when you were 45, there's a change that happened in you. You became more shut down, more reserved, more angry, less of a risk taker, not so much joy. Not Yeah, you start to notice these things about yourself. So absolutely. It doesn't matter when it happened in life. I guess the reason I wanted to bring up as a child is because there are indications that and I'm going to say this, I really want parents to be aware of in your own children. And when a child is shut down, when they're just disconnected, when they're mad all the time, when they just don't have anything to say to you, you want to blame it, like you get frustrated with the child. And I remember my own mother always telling me just how rebellious I was and stubborn I was, and she was always mad at me. It felt as a child that she was always angry with me. And I know now that the reason I was like that, I just wanted to be in my room, leave me alone. I didn't want, I come from 5 siblings, and I was closest to a brother that we would go and play and so forth. But if we weren't outside playing, I was in my room with the door shut, right? And so as a child, it shut me down. It basically, I had no self-esteem. I had no self-confidence. I didn't like myself. I was never felt like I was enough. Body shamed myself a lot. I'm never skinny enough, never pretty enough, never anything enough, constantly just beating myself up. And so for adults that have children, pay attention. I really want to say pay attention, because if there's a noticeable shift in a child's way of being, their energy, their personality, do some digging. I'm not saying it's always going to be sexual abuse, but something's there. Something's there. And I think one of the biggest things for me as a child that came up during my healing process is feeling that nobody cared, that nobody loved me, that nobody was going to protect me, that I wasn't worth saving. I wasn't worth loving. This is where a lot of my not enoughness stemmed from, because as a little girl, because nobody saved me, my dad didn't save me, my mom didn't save me, nobody came and stopped it. In my mind, in that 4-year-old little brain, it's because I wasn't worth saving. So I think that's the difference between a child and then happening at 22 years old. You're going to have a different set of beliefs at 22 years old, and different things that shut you down, and maybe anxiety, and you're going to be scared, and it's more like PTSD. And it's not going to be that you're not enough. It's going to just be these other anxious anxiety, kind of things, both bad, but a child just processes things and sees things differently.
So you shared, Raquel, that you went years without sleeping. Well, just like really, really bad sleep for, like, I think you said 12 years.
Yeah.
Till you figured it out. Was something in your childhood connected to that sleep issue?
Yeah. So what happens is we go through these experiences, And then something later in life, because I slept fine, Steve, I slept fine until I didn't. And so it was a trigger. There was another incident in my life that triggered the past trauma, and then it all came tumbling down.
That is
And that's the other piece people don't understand, is they think because the current situation is where they saw the shift happen in themselves and their health and their sleep, whatever, they think it's that. But a lot of times it's just triggering past trauma, and now it's just on.
Wow. What does that say about what we deal with, especially
Yes.
where everything was okay sleep-wise, everything was okay, all of a sudden, boom, that's it.
Yes.
And it was just
Yes.
something that caused it. And 12 years went on, 12
Mhm.
years until you figured it out or figured what, and that, and again, I'm going to share with everybody based on what you told me, going to doctors, diagnostics, everything. Nobody had the answer another year goes
Nobody.
by.
MRIs, specialists, sleep specialists, body specialists, because my body started crashing. You name it. I did like 4 or 5 years of Western medicine. I finally fired them. They fired me. It wasn't working. I went holistic. It helped, but it wasn't my answer until I dealt with what I'm telling you today. I had to deal with my mind, and I had to deal energetically with the emotions that were stuck in my body.
And we didn't even talk about the energetic side of clearing that stuff out. Why don't we hit that for a second? So
Sure.
when you heal somebody energetically, let's say they went through a trauma as a child, how often do you have to keep clearing that stuff out? Or it's kind of unknown? It's I kind of know the answer having gone through energy clearing. Um, it's not a one and done, typically. It keeps coming back, and it does it get to a point where yeah, it's pretty much eradicated.
I believe it does. I believe it does, Steve. I think once you actually clear an actual emotion, that's done. That is not coming back. But what we do have are setbacks in terms of new experiences and triggers that will then cause similar types of reactions from us, but it's not coming from that past emotion. This is a new one that's just playing the same role. But the beauty about that is when you get to a point where you've kind of cleared out all the junk over the years, because that takes a little bit. That's not a one and done, right? That's a few sessions of really clearing that. But you do get to the point where it's one or two things, and then we clear it, and then they're done. So it is nice because in the beginning, it's like I'm clearing people 30, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour per session. And that's a lot of energy work, a lot of releasing happening. But then you get to the point where I had someone the other day, it's like my throat hurts and I don't know why, right? And just over the phone, I was able to see what it was. It was just she went through a breakup and was feeling it. Her immune system lowered, right? And she got a little something in her throat. We cleared it. And then hour later, she's like, my throat is completely fine. I'm like, nice. So it does still happen, but it's not, we didn't need to do, 5 sessions of an hour a piece. It was like literally a couple of things and she was done.
Wow. But the first thing I thought of, Raquel, we got like a minute left here, but the first thing I thought of when you said that, throat chakra. Am I off base here or what?
Yeah, no, it's correct. And a lot of times it could be your chakra. A lot of times it could be an imbalance somewhere else that we need to clear. It just depends. Once I get in there, I can see where's the imbalance, what's the emotion causing it, and then we can clear it. Yeah.
I'm glad we talked about this today because I think for a lot of people, it's clearer. It's clearer. These things that we've dealt with as kids, again, we talked about this before, but not, about the abuse aspect of it. It's so impactful. And what you just said, why are you living like that? Why? Fortunately, unfortunately, and fortunately, that was you in terms of you living, not sleeping well and all of that. But, learning that you were able to help other people.
Yes.
So things, I think they happen for a reason. So, your challenge is our gain in all of that.
Yeah. And I really believe that sometimes we go through challenges for that reason. This was my path, Steve, and I didn't realize when I was getting my butt kicked for 12 years that it would lead me here. But today I can look back and say I am very grateful because it's changed my life so much the lives of my children, my husband, my extended family. And now I'm able to offer that to individuals that are just suffering and they don't know the answer. So, yeah.
You have some of the answers, or you can at least provide the insight. How do we find you?
My website is raquelrwilliams.com. That's RAQUEL, rwilliams.com. Or my number's 415-347-6861.
And side note, if somebody is dealing with something that doesn't feel right in terms of their, like the sleep situation.
Yeah.
There may be stuff from your childhood that you're not even aware of.
Yes.
We can figure that.
Insomnia, typically, unless it's an imbalance or a deficiency physically in your body, it's fight or flight. The bear is chasing you. And we just need to figure out, what is the bear? Let's get him to stop chasing you. So you're not in that mode of, I can't go to sleep because I'm not safe. Now, you don't know that consciously, but that's what's happening.
Always amazing talking with you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Steve.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.